Osmosis and diffusion, osmosis and diffusion, hi-ho science, osmosis and diffusion.
Oh my gosh, you're so lucky, blue team. Can't
Ta-da.
tell ya. Okay, so you ready for some fun? This is really tricky stuff, so bear with us, okay, kiddos?
Alright, so let's talk water first. Your good old H2O. Alright, 2/3 of your body is made up of water, so you're mostly water. Some of you may have goldfish in you, like this poor gentleman here. But water is really, 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 really important, which is why 2/3 of your body is water. So one of the things that water can do is it makes sure that it dissolves substances in order for your body to go through some chemical reactions. So things like breaking down food and processing energy and things like that, it needs water to do.
Yep.
You want to take the next one?
Oh. What did you say? Did you say that one?
Yeah, you're on size and shape.
I was totally on it. Okay. It also helps your cells keep their size and shape. So without the water, your cells would be kind of unstructured.
So this is what we talked about with, like, whenever Miss Millis mentioned about how the leaves of plants start to droop and things like that because they don't have enough water in them.
That's right. And then finally, they help regulate your temperature. We are warm-blooded mammals, and there's so many warm-blooded animals out there that need the water to help keep us at that constant degrees, which for humans is around 98.6. And water is a key component in that.
So if you've ever seen a car overheat, it's because it didn't have enough water in its radiator. So, important.
Okay, why do we keep cells so small? Or we don't keep them so small, but they are pretty small. Well, if they grow too large, the molecules will kind of get lost when they enter the cell to find its destination. So, like, we have 3 cells down here, small, medium, and large. And the small guy, if an oxygen molecule goes in, it's going to find its destination pretty quickly. The medium guy, it's going to get there, but it might take a little longer. Look at this large guy. We double the size one more time. Dude, it's going to take a long time if it ever finds its destination. And when we have oxygen, it's going to need to find its destination quickly. So in order to survive, you have to have small cells. So there's like this age-old question, what has a bigger cell? Does a whale have a bigger cell or a mouse? Well, your answer is going to be they have the same size. Essentially, cells are very similar in size. Okay, I want you to watch this video about osmosis and diffusion.
Your panelist.
Mitochondria.
Now the brains are on the top row, Tony. Mitochondria. In cells, what is diffusion? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Diffusion is the movement of particles when there are a lot of those particles to an area where there are not so many particles. You got all that?
I disagree.
The answer, if you please.
Diffusion is one method of transport in cells. Particles move from where there are a lot of them to where there are less. An example would be drops of food coloring in water, eventually diffusing into the water, yet no material has crossed over a membrane. When particles do move through the cell membrane, that form of diffusion is called osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of water and dissolved materials through cell membranes. Osmosis is a type of diffusion, and it always involves materials crossing over a membrane and always involves water. Diffusion itself doesn't need energy from the cell for movement. This energy-free movement of materials is called passive transport. Active transport is the movement of materials against the usual flow of diffusion, or when materials are particularly large. Active transport requires energy. Not all materials a cell needs are small enough to simply diffuse into the cell. Cells often need more of a substance than they can get through diffusion. 1/3 of the energy made by a cell is used for active transport. The energy required for transport is supplied by the mitochondria. Mitochondria needs food, oxygen, and water to produce this energy. The waste product of this process is carbon dioxide.
Mitochondria was right. Sorry, Tony. No O. Jenna.
Okay, kiddo, so hopefully that helps you see in osmosis osmosis and diffusion in action. So sometimes it's nice to see like a video clip of it actually happening rather than in like a picture. So let's review like the membrane. The cell membrane in particular protects the cell itself and controls what goes in and out of the cell.
Okay, so keep in mind that even though a plant cell has the outer cell wall, that isn't what determines what can come in and out of our cell. Okay, your cell membrane that's around animal and plant cells is what we call selectively permeable. So that means it allows some substances to come in and go out, while it restricts others from entering or restricts them from leaving the cell.
Okay, so for diffusion, what the word diffusion means is that molecules go from an area of high concentration, which means a lot, to an area of low concentration, which means not as much. So if you look at this graphic, those blue guys, let's say they're oxygen, because that's what the caption says, and you see all these oxygen molecules crammed on the outside of the cell. Well, inside there's some, but they're not as jam-packed. After diffusion happens, they all spread out evenly. This happens a lot with scents. It's easy to think of when you think of something that smells. So if you're cooking bacon in your house, it is going to be really heavily concentrated wherever you cook your bacon. I assume it's the kitchen, but some of you are weird. But let's go with the kitchen. If you're cooking bacon in the kitchen, it's going to be really, really smelly in the kitchen, and then it's going to spread out to the next room. In our house, it's the living room. Your house?
The dining room.
She just moved. She's not quite familiar with her
Dining
house
room.
structure yet. Duh. So it's going to go to the next area because there's no bacon cooking in the living room or the dining room, so that's going to spread out. And then eventually it's going to keep on spreading until it's even in the whole house. And in my house, it takes like 2 days.
Yeah, so you guys have a lot of experience with stuff like this too, especially when you spray your Axe cologne or the perfume in the hallway. It's always the blue team kids who do it, and the red team kids finally smell it because it diffuses down the hallway. Even if you're not near it when it happens, it eventually makes
finds
its way.
you.
Yeah, there's no escaping it.
Because there's not much, let's pretend, in the red hallway, so it's going to spread out until it's all even, because the world is always about balance, and it wants to find a balance here.
Yep, which is your cells want to be balanced as well, so that's why they go through the process of diffusion or osmosis, which we're getting ready to talk about, because they want to be even on the inside as they are on the outside.
Osmosis is diffusion. It's just with water molecules. It's so special they gave it its own name. It's the same exact process.
So the image on the left here is what a cell looks like when it has enough water. So the cell is nice and firm. It's got a great shape to it. There's no space in between the inside and the cell membrane. If you look at the picture on the right, though, this is a cell that doesn't have enough water. So it's started to shrink. Its shape is misfigured. It's detached from the cell membrane. So just not a very pretty sight.
Okay, so these are examples of passive transport. Think of somebody is passive. They're allowing something to happen. Maybe being passive as your friend bullies the weird kid on the bus. You're just letting that happen. You're being a passive person. And passive transport means like the diffusion or the osmosis just happening in the cell. The cell doesn't have to like say, I need that. It just comes in and comes out. Because it can go both ways.
It's kind of like an open door policy.
Oops, sorry.
So if it wants to go in, it can go in. If it wants to go out, it can go out. And once again, remember, they're trying to kind of balance each other out. So you're always going from a high concentration to a low concentration. So you are swimming kind of in the right direction, the easy path, which is why you can do this without needing to use any energy. You're not swimming upstream.
You're going with the flow. That's how they say it. But contrary to passive, you can be active. And if you're active, you do require energy. This is going to happen a couple of times. So let's go with one example. One example would be, dude, there's some oxygen molecules here. There's only a couple. Inside the cell, there's a ton. But you might be doing this really rigorous activity where you need a lot of oxygen. So your cell's like, dude, I need some more. I'm not trying to hoard it. I'm not trying to be like that kind of kid, but I need more. So I'm going to grab you and push you through my transport protein using energy.
So in order for this to happen, because you're no longer swimming downstream, you're trying to swim upstream. You're trying to go from an area of low concentration to high concentration. we have to use energy to get those extra molecules where we want them to be. So whereas we said the passive transport was kind of like an open door policy, this one is a little bit harder. You kind of have to have the secret password. So you gotta jump on your transport protein and get permission to kind of cross the membrane there.
And this also can happen not with just when the concentration gradient is off. Like this here is going from low to high. It can happen with some bigger molecules also. It can happen with like potassium and calcium and things that the cell needs in order to do its functions. It'll just come and grab it because it's too big to maybe go through the membrane. It'll have its own special transport protein. And
it could be trying to get it out of the membrane as well.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you said that.
There's a lot of things too, like your cells can't have they can't have too much of certain things. So too much potassium in your cells could be harmful to them. So they may need to expel some of the potassium.
Or when you make carbon dioxide.
Right. You want to get the carbon dioxide out of your cells because that is harmful to your cells. So it's not just in one direction or out the other direction.
One direction.
Oh boy, Harry Styles, right?
I don't know those people.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Cooler teacher here.
Oh yeah, I'm lame. So kiddos, if this is not making sense, you will be doing 2 activities, one on diffusion, one on osmosis next. So hopefully that helps you ring a bell. If not, come seek us out. This is tricky stuff.
And keep in mind, so osmosis and diffusion, same thing, except for osmosis is specifically with water. Active and passive transport, similar things, except for active uses energy, passive does not. See ya.
Bye.